And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry, and we're going to be talking about the season 2 finale of The Righteous Gemstones. If you've not hit the sub button, please do so. There's a lot of content on the channel. We got Raised by Wolves, Big Sky, Snowfall is back, and it's as good as ever. Check that out. Go check out our finale review for 1883. But yeah, we're going to talk about Righteous Gemstones and what a finale it was. Full spoilers ahead. We were right. The listens. It was the listens. Now, I was the opening in terms of what went down with the reporter. That shit was nuts. Didn't see any of that. I mean, I think Spencer or you, Larry, had some theories that tied the listens in, but as far as the way it played out with the grenades and just everything was insane. Uh, I thought that scene was amazing. Your guys' thoughts specifically on that revelation?
That was surprising. Yeah, the whole grenade, the way it went down. Yeah, we predicted some of that, but the way it went down, no one could have predicted that. The grenades and everything, like you said, um, Thaniel, shooting the pot and it ricocheting and him killing himself. Uh, the fact that they were still there when Jesse and everyone showed up, and just honestly how ruthless. Is it Lyle listens?
Yeah.
How ruthless he is with like his own dudes. He's like, "Do you think they saw you?" And you kind of knew it was trouble then, but you didn't think he would burn them alive. So like, yeah, that whole scenario came out of left field.
Well, it's funny. Like, there was a lot of things that we mentioned that we thought maybe, could be a possibility, but there is no way that I would have ever in a million years been able to predict some of these things that happened. We had some of the most, I shouldn't say I had a lot of really outlandish theories. The fact that Thaniel's whole case was built off the opening episode where he basically was the one causing all these people to get outed by the church, and he was just causing trouble, and it really wasn't even that big a deal, but Lyle was trying to use it to get money, and it was working for him. And then Daniel's like, "Fuck you, you're my puppet." And to me, the best part of that whole sequence was still the grenades. Lyle flicking a cigarette, doing all these really shitty things and showing his true depth of his evil was still not nearly as good as the whole fucking grenade scene. Because we were like, did somebody shoot an RPG? Did something? We had, and then they referenced, what was it? The pyrotechnics and like all these things. And we're like, how did that shit blow up like that? The fact that they brought grenades because they didn't want to leave any evidence was the most ridiculous shit, but it was so great. It was such a great twist.
The fact that he bought not only grenades but a mixed bag of grenades.
Yes.
Like...
frag grenades.
Because we were like, was it because I was thinking some kind of military vehicle with like a minigun or something. Like, we really like just couldn't put my head around like what happened. How did the guy end up in the tree? How did all that happen? And yeah, a bag of grenades. What's the answer?
Like, and it just it gave us a good idea of who Lyle was, that he's roughly the same guy as Jesse, but more sinister. He didn't value his crew. He's willing to do to go that extra step.
On that note, and I'm glad you said that because it goes right into my next note. The way he talked to his guys, and then the sort of interaction with his father in that one scene, very Jesse. But like you said, Jesse hasn't crossed into that just ruthless, side where he's willing to brutally kill, in order to achieve his goals. At least not at this point. And so it was sort of interesting because some of those conversations had a lot of similarities, but at this point, Lyle had crossed over into the any means necessary.
Yeah, and it was surprising as how ruthless he was about everything. The fact that he's basically imprisoned his father in this facility, and and seized all his assets. The cold murders without feeling a thing. The fact that he does that. These kids he's trained. It's just like you said, he's Jesse, but it's so much darker. He wants that control so bad, and unlike Jesse, he's not willing to politic for it. He's not willing to wait for it or try to slowly convince a person. He's gonna, like you said, he's gonna take it by any means necessary. He's going to have the power he wants.
Well, and I think they mentioned it later in the episode too. Um, it was almost like a difference of growing up. They talk about how entitled they were, and although it doesn't justify the shitty stuff that Lyle and his wife committed, but they always had to work and scrape to get by. So when they saw the opportunity to basically take over and become the new head honchos, instead of just waiting and biding their time, they saw an opportunity and took it. To me, that doesn't make them good people. It just it's more of an explanation, not an excuse kind of thing. But yeah, the fact that Lyle was manipulating his friends, his family, his everybody to do these awful, awful things, and then just using them. It wasn't just the fact that he did these things. He had zero remorse. He didn't care as long as he was on top. But the fact that he put Lisa's dad in an old folks home, I'm surprised that Will didn't show up and take him out. That was all for
I'll say that.
I wonder how many people are going to get the reference.
Hey man, he's
Hopefully
always.
everybody now, because I just said it.
But it's funny because that's where I think you texted me that's where you went, but I went immediately with Coming to America as McDowell.
Yeah,
McDowell's. Where was my next note? I want to talk about Joe Jonas because there's two scenes that are standouts in the episode, and a solid, amazing episode. Well, both for comedy, but just great scenes, and I love that he was there and that he was in this. But the first scene, how excited Judy and BJ were when they heard he was going to be at the celebration. I love BJ. He's one of the greatest characters. I love that. And then the Keith scene, dude, when him and Keith touched hands opening the Porter John, they took so much time and care into shooting that scene to show their hands touch and everything, and just the awkwardness of Keith and everything. I'm so excited to see what happens with Keith going into season 3. He's amazing character, but I just love that scene. I thought it was great.
Yeah, Keith. Well, I mean, Keith's great every episode. It's just the whole culmination of this party and everything, and Keith. I feel like Keith should have had a bigger role in this whole thing. Was
yeah, I agree.
was he with the group during the the last scene before the listens got? I didn't think so.
I don't think he was.
He should have been, or he should have been the one to sort of save them in that moment. And I kind of thought that that was going to happen, that we'd have Keith or one of the other side characters who weren't there show up.
Well, he had a huge, he had a legit storyline in season 1, and then 2, his was very much blended with Kelvin's.
Yeah,
and he didn't necessarily have his own,
Hey, I guess they he's star of some of the web shorts apparently. I sent you the workout video that they had for Keith.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good board.
I want that on a T-shirt with the ripped Jesus that they had as a logo.
Your thoughts on any of that, Spencer? Just Keith.
I don't know. I just started thinking about the YouTube video now, but I think that Keith was a perfectly utilized character. I don't think that they underused him just because there's a lot of overarching stories. I didn't feel like he was a red herring, but I felt you know, the way that they were using him, I thought that he was going to not necessarily be more important, but I thought it was leading to him being his, I don't know, his story arc being more significant to, um, God, not Kyle.
Kelvin.
There you go. I know it was a K, but I thought his story was going to tie more into Calvin's than it did. But I'm not super upset by his story at all. I thought it was a great addition to Kelvin's story, and I am interested to see what greatness those two can embark on next season.
Well, I guess they could only fit, like you said, so many side stories into the season because he kind of got sidelined, but a character who was also the main character got sidelined a little bit this season too. We didn't see much of Gideon, especially early on. Like I think they showed him in episode 1, and then he disappeared for several episodes.
He was completely sidelined. Yeah. He had his cool moment with the dirt bike. And then in this one, he got the, we see where, he's a stunt man. He's working in Atlanta or whatever. But yeah, there were setups that I thought they were setting things up with the house. He was getting the grandfather's house. And I really thought that was going somewhere, or there was some thing he was going to discover, or, um, I don't know. Yeah, that surprised me more so than even the Keith thing, that Gideon, because he was a major character in season 1.
I think it was just to basically have them tie in the backstory to the grandfather. I don't think that their intention was to bring Gideon's story that much further forward. I think it was also the red herring kind of thing where they were leading us to believe with all the motorcycle stuff that maybe he was involved like he was the first season. So I think it was twofold, whereas basically just kind of trying to tie in some references from season 1, all the while leading us in a different direction a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess you kind of hit the nail on the head that it was light foreshadowing, just like, hey, yeah, remember this guy, remember Gideon's stuntman skills and whatnot, and that he rides a motorcycle, just light foreshadowing that we kind of thought meant a little bit more because Gideon, and that was probably partially because like we just said, Gideon last season he was a main character, that whose point of view you often focused on in season 1.
We get so baby Billy comes back. We had his reconciling with Harmon in the last episode, now played by Macaulay Culkin, which very excited about the potential for him in season 3. He comes back to Tiffany, and then they decide to do a sequence. I alluded to sort of the Jonas Keefe scene, which sort of was the intro to it. This was that gross out, ridiculous, over the top, almost early 2000s, just crazy comedy bit that in some situations might not work, but it worked here, at least for me. That being Tiffany giving birth to the child and going into the Porta John, baby Billy trying to rescue the child, pulling the umbilical cord, it's snapping, him having to dig in. I mean, it's over the top, but I will admit I was laughing loudly the entire time. I loved it. Um, yeah, they're back together. Everything, is great with those two. But just thoughts on that scene, and even just that style of comedy. Like I said, that's that. You don't typically see that a lot now.
Well, we
Well,
about that, Brian, because you were talking about how the Joe Jonas, that was like one of your favorite scenes, and I was like, no, the baby sequence, the whole toilet baby, which we all we saw it coming. Like we knew that she was going to have the baby in the toilet. It was a porta potty. It's disgusting. And then him mentioning pulling the baby up like a bucket from a well using the umbilical cord, and then it snapping and him having to fish, basically through turds to find the baby, and then holding him up like fucking Simba coming out of the shitter. Yeah, that was to me one of my favorite sequences of this episode.
Yeah, I thought it was real juvenile, but I laughed my ass off. You know, it was necessary. Usually, this type of humor nowadays, is not done too often now, like Brian said. But I think that's often because it falls flat. But it was telegraphed, but it was still funny, and it was expected. And I guess we were following the wrong foreshadowing because they did mention that that Tiffany was a toilet baby also during BJ's baptism when they were talking to her to his parents, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole sequence is amazing. She's like, I wasn't a turd. No, it wasn't a turd. It was me.
Right.
Um, the so everything escalates because everyone starts figuring out the truth around the same time. Jesse sort of figures it out. Um, Eli figures it out that it was the listens. They were the ones responsible, and so Jesse confronts him. We get a he uses a sling, hits Lyle in the head. We get a sequence that's very Eric Andre, like you straight just it just was him. They think he's dead. He's not dead. He's got the big knot on his head. I mean, loved all that. But this leads to also BJ getting shot, which was played for laughs. But it was at the same time, it was yet again the sort of final BJ's part of the family moment. Like we've already got it a few episodes back, but this was to me the one that was like, yes, he's a gemstone through and through. So all that, the future of Bj and Judy is looking bright. We'll get into the final part here in a moment, but just thoughts on all that.
Yeah, we mentioned that I thought it was funny that not only did she shoot him, but she didn't threaten to shoot anybody else. She threatened to shoot BJ again. She's like, I'll put another bullet in him. Like, but yeah, she's threatening BJ, and he's definitely part of the family. And you both mentioned your favorite scene is my favorite scene was BJ and Judy, discussing, what their relationship would be if they had a baby. The fact that BJ has started to talk is just as messed up as Judy. It's starting to rub off on him. Like you said, he's definitely becoming a gemstone.
Dude, that in that entire sequence, the sling to the head, the fact that he like camouflaged him and just threw like a couple beach lawn chairs and it looked like a pallet and a couple like palm tree leaves that were rotted, and him talking about how he had to cover them up so nobody could see. I've God, the entire episode I lost it during so many different parts, but that one specifically, like you were saying, Larry, it was joke on top of joke, but it was all so well done that it didn't feel over the top. It, I mean, I'm not going to say it felt believable, but the dialogue was so, well written. It was just great, and we always praise uh, Danny McBride, but the comedic timing of all these people, I don't know if it's him like lining it up or what, but it is all of them play so well off of each other that it's
Well,
so.
I don't know about everyone, but I do know the actress that plays Judy. I don't know her name off the top of my head, but she's part of the, they have writers that are credited to the episodes, but they have several people that sort of work on the dialogue. She's in the writers room. Like she writes comedy. So yeah, a lot of her great lines, I would assume she probably writes a lot of them. She has a background in comedy writing, and so yeah, it's definitely a team effort. I'm not sure about some of the other characters, but her specifically, I do know that to be the case.
It's Edie Peterson, I think, or Eddie. I don't know how to pronounce it. Edi.
I've never seen that name spelled like that, or I guess spelled in this case. But yeah, she's hilarious in this show, and she's definitely hilarious. But yeah, that whole scene, like you said, it didn't feel out of place. Everything felt very in character, especially like you said, Spencer, Jesse covering him up with like the palm leaves and stuff, because Jesse's as dumb as everybody else when he panics.
Yeah, and that was funny. Um, we essentially get the Godfather in the final scene, which was really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's straight up what it was. We have the listens are out in hiding. You know, they're gone. They're in hiding, and so you know we sort of get a little clip of what's going on. You know, we have a church service. We have Harmon is at church. So you know, like I was saying, Macaulay Culkin could be in season 3. He's sitting there. He's in the church. He's now possibly going to maybe have a bigger role in the family because he is part of that blood. Um, Now Junior's got some money. Eli hooked him up. They're friends now. You know, maybe we'll get some more Eric Roberts next season. Um, the Gemstones take over Zion. Like, well, you know, that's a big deal. They own a resort now, so that's another big thing. So we were getting all this stuff, and then while it's intercut with the listens in hiding, and then a team of assassins being sent to take them out, and then we get
Oh,
yet again
Lord.
another brilliant comedy bit. It's, I mean, it's you know I have heard some people critique Danny McBride as being a little mean with some of his comedy, like, but it look, it's funny, like when when the idea was, okay, she'll hide in this this chest, we'll push it out, it'll hit, she'll jump up and shoot them. Like, I get what the plan was. Obviously, that's the joke. It lands, it sort of knocks her down, and then they just, you know, shoot her and kill her. And then he runs off and then freezes to death and then is consumed by wolves. It's hilarious. It is very violent. It is yet again over the top. It's not for everybody. I'll admit this was an episode where I did say, you know, this show isn't for everyone, but it damn sure is for me. And
Yep.
I love that sequence. So yeah, just thoughts on that, how all that played out.
I think we talked about that the other day when we were recording one of our other reviews. The
Mhm.
fact that he put her inside of a chest, and it's one of those things we talk about telegraphing. You could see what was the intent of what they were trying to do, and the fact that she like stumbles out of it because I'm sure her ass got thrown around inside of that trunk and smacked her head, all kinds of stuff. She comes out like punch drunk and gets shot 20 times. And then he sneaks out the back door after she dies. He's just like, fuck this, I'm out. And then they all start laughing because they hear the wolves howling and everything. And they just let him run out into the tundra and just freeze to death. And the fact that they also had him set up like The Shining, Jack Nicholson from The Shining.
Yeah.
Oh God, it was so good.
Yeah, and I think the most chilling thing about this whole thing is, the realization of who Eli is and the things he's willing to do. And because my first thought here is after seeing that scene is like, okay, yeah, he took everything seemingly that belonged to the listens. And they rebranded it the Gemstones, this and that. They have the resort and everything. He's got his hit squad of child soldiers, which implies that he probably took over the orphanage as well, and probably
Yeah,
is Western ministry. Which means he kept the child assassins as well, and that they're on his payroll. That means Eli is paying for that.
absolutely. You know, that was exactly where my mind went because who else would fund this? You know, they have to travel where they travel to get the gear and everything. Absolutely. And you have the coordination there. I mean, there's so many. My assumption is they didn't know they were getting a season 3. So this story very much wraps up. Like, this could have been the end of the show, but the fact that they got greenlit for a season 3, there's so many directions they could take it if they want to. Um, Eli could continue to have somewhat of a ruthless streak if they want. They could sort of back off on it if they want. Like, they have that option. We have the resort now. We have Harmon now in the fold. Baby Billy's back in the crew. Um, I mean, there's so many thoughts. Like, where would you want it to go?
I don't know who the main antagonist would be, but there's so many people that Daniel brought up that the listens were blackmailing all these people. Somebody is going to have to take over the listens church. I don't know if the dad gets out of his old folks home, his old folks prison, or if it's another family member, or if it's one of the people that they were blackmailing. Or I think what would be the best is if Joe Jonas comes back as the antagonist, because the Gemstones took over Zion. He spent, he was an investor. So is he still an investor? I think it'd be cool to spin it to where they basically bought him out and now he feels cut out of the deal. And then have all the Jonas Brothers kind of make a cameo. I think that would be a great little twist, but I don't know. I'm looking forward to it regardless, because these 2 seasons have shown that no matter what I think will happen, it's still going to be funny and still well done. And I wasn't even close.
Well, yeah, because it seems like, with what they've acquired from the listens, that they're not the East Coast anymore, and the listens are the West. It seems like they're going to be like more of a national brand when we get our season 3. So, could there be a reporter following up on what happened to Thaniel, trying to figure that out? And while Eli's now does have things to hide, because he's got one foot in one world and one foot in the other, because he's decided that, he's not just, Pastor Gemstone, and he's not just whatever his wrestling moniker is. I forget what it was. He's both. So
That kid.
yeah, Maniac Kid. Yeah, he's both those people, and it could be Eli trying to cover that up, or cover up the events of what happened here. And it could also be Jesse taking over the Listens ministry and finding out that it is not as easy as he thinks to be Eli. In fact, he's because he's Eli. He's Eli, but he's Eli on a more honest path than Eli is. So Jesse's having a hard time with that, and maybe the pastors in that church are plotting against him because they were previously under the Listens. So there's a lot of places they can go, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so many. And I'm assuming it probably will be the last season. That's Danny usually in the 3-season realm of what he does, with whatever sweet ass deal he has with HBO. So I would assume it's probably going to be the last season. I could be wrong, but that's my guess. And then who knows what'll be next. That's about all I have as far as the show. It's gonna suck not watching it Sunday nights anymore, because it was something that I very little. Most of the stuff we watch streaming, I usually won't get to it for days. This was something I watched Sunday night most weeks. I actually had to start because my sister watches it and she texts me spoilers.
She would text you spoilers on a Sunday.
Well, she would send me like a thumbnail, like a image, and I'd be able to decipher what it meant. I'm like, wait, what? And so I had to start watching it as it aired.
She sent you a photo of a frozen Eric Andre surrounded by wolves.
She sent me a picture of a wolf. She absolutely sent me a picture of a wolf, and Home Alone and all kind of shit. So yeah, I would watch it as it aired. But yeah, any other thoughts?
No.
I'm just real curious where we go with the season 3. Is like we said, is Harmon a bigger part of this? Or now that we followed BJ a little more in the previous seasons, are we now going to pick back up with Gideon and I'm about to say Keith, yeah, Gideon and Keith.
My only last little gripe is that we won't have Eric Andre next season.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a twin. There's another show we watch in which that is just how they write. You can kill anybody, they'll have a twin.
Don't
Big Sky.
That's the best thing ever.
I agree. That's oddly enough, that's what's keeping me interested in that show. But yeah, so I guess that's it. Like I said, we got a lot of other stuff on the channel. Our 1883 season finale is up. Raised by Wolves, or is it going up today? It may be. It'll be up in the next day or so. Raised by Wolves is coming. Snowfall. Big Sky. Look out for our Big Sky reviews. Appreciate everyone listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay woke.